So I'm gonna be arranging in these two vases. I'm just gonna make two little guys. I have lots of zinnias, as you can see. That's pretty much the bulk of what I've grown because zinnias are extremely easy, especially for a person who's doing a cut flower garden for the first time. Lots of sunflowers too. I've been using tomato foliage a lot for my arrangements as well. And today I have some sweet potato vine from the front yard that was needing trimmed. So I'm gonna experiment with that a little bit. Other than that, I have some gomphrena, yarrow, and basil, and lots of different things. My process for arranging flowers is pretty random, I would say. Mostly I just try to keep in mind that I want like a 360 arrangement that looks good from all sides, and I just try to fill in the space until I feel like it looks good. Summer is a really interesting time in life for me. It feels full of conflicting emotions. I basically constantly feel at odds with myself during the summer because it's one of my favorite times of the year. I absolutely love being outside. I love it when everything feels alive and I feel alive and all of that. But I've just come to also associate it with pretty much some of the hardest events in my life. My brother was born in July and died in August. I was born on like one of the last days of June. So it feels like it's a full span of a couple of months in midsummer where I am constantly having difficult memories or in like a constant state of contemplation, which is pretty insufferable a lot of the time. I just feel tired with always being like inundated with thoughts like that during the summer. Right now, as I'm filming this, it is late July. So I'm kind of like right in the middle of that difficult part of summer. I just turned 26, which on most days, I don't feel any type of way about that. But whenever I kind of get in the rut of experiencing a lot of difficult emotions, I do find myself feeling some of those kind of stereotypical late 20s feelings of have I done enough? Am I doing enough in my life? Am I going in the right direction? But at the same time, I also have days where I'm like, you're so young, like you're fine. And I feel like that is true. That's the part of it that is true, but I still have those times where it's really difficult for me to fully like understand that. The past couple of days have been a little tough, and I find myself thinking that way a lot more. It's kind of interesting the way that those feelings interact with some of the grief that comes up for me at this time of year as well. If there's one thing that grief taught me, it's that it will absolutely put in perspective for you the things that truly matter very quickly. And so there was a good amount of time when I frankly did not have the energy to pick myself apart in the ways that I used to about frivolous things, about my appearance, about how much I had accomplished, about my achievements, things like that, that just, I did not have the time of day to give energy to those perfectionistic thoughts for the longest time. But it's been interesting in the last couple of years, or probably in the last year, really, I have felt myself coming out of survival mode enough to feel myself slipping back into those patterns of thinking that it almost felt like I didn't have the luxury for a while. And it's really frustrating because for the longest time, I really felt like, okay, this loss is this horrible, terrible, absolutely tragic thing that happened to me, but it's also been an extremely formative experience that has shaped so much of my perspective on life. And one of those perspectives was I thought that I had gained a much greater perspective about what truly mattered in life. And I think that is still true. It just, as I feel myself not living in fight or flight mode all the time anymore, I feel more in touch with those kind of more day-to-day struggles, those little questionings that we have about ourselves of are we doing enough, and am I cool enough, and do people like me, and all these things that I thought I had started to see for how frivolous they were. But I don't know, it's just really interesting to see those kinds of things emerging in me again, and having so much difficulty accepting where I am in life, and actually feeling proud of myself. Obviously, I'm not discounting all the things that I learned from enduring such a terrible loss, but it's just, I almost feel like I'm readjusting to, for the first time since his death 4 years ago, I feel like I've been readjusting to feeling normal again. So it's just been funny how turning 26 has ignited some of those things in me that I just really didn't expect to even have on my radar, really. I also started a master's degree recently, and I talked a little bit about it in my last video, but I didn't go into detail. But I'm getting a Master of Public Health. I work in public health, and it was something I thought about for a long time, whether or not I wanted to do it, because I already have a master's degree, and I feel like pretty much 99% of the time having 2 master's degrees is completely unnecessary. And it's a financial commitment that I think most of the time is, if you can avoid it, you should. If you can reach your goals without having to do something like that, you should. But it was genuinely something where, like, I felt like I would be in a much better position to reach my professional goals if I got this master's degree. What I talked about in my last video was how it has obviously just been a huge challenge as far as time, and making sure that I'm making time for myself and everything. But another thing with it is, like, it's one of those things that has been making me feel like my life is moving in a very adult direction very quickly. Another one of those things is I moved in with my boyfriend this summer. That's been going really, really well. No complaints. No complaints so far. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I always thought I would be some kind of exception when it came to, like, having an existential crisis when you turn 26, 27, but seems like that is not the case. I think this one is pretty much done. I think it looks pretty good. Let's do the little one. Going back to what I was talking about earlier of kind of finding myself slipping back into thought patterns that I had when I was in, like, high school that I just haven't experienced in a while, of being really, really concerned about how much I'm accomplishing, or how I appear to other people, or do people like me? How do they perceive me? Like, it's different now than it was back then. It's not as consuming as it was back then, because obviously when you're in high school, those types of emotions are difficult to escape. And I was talking to Dustin about it the other day. I was telling him about this podcast I was listening to where The hosts were talking about their younger lives. They're both women in their late 20s. And one of them was like working as a realtor, making a lot of money, like more money than you could ever imagine at like 18, 19 years old, like making six figures at that age. And she had this dream of leaving her hometown where she was and moving to New York and pursuing fashion. She was really close with the people she worked with at the time, and she looked up to them a lot and asked them their advice. And what they said to her was like, if we were you, we would go. And if any of us were put back in time and had the choice again to do what we did or follow our dreams, we would follow our dreams. And she was kind of just like, but you guys are so successful. You own this really successful company and you have families and you're fulfilled and happy. And they were like, yeah, we are, but we do look back and understand what we traded off instead. And not that everybody has this like super black or white path that they could take between following their dreams and settling for something more secure. I just found it really profound. Like, it really stuck with me because one of the biggest things I have been just thinking about so much in my life as I get later into my 20s and, you know, kind of settle into certain aspects of my life is that I really seek, more than anything, security, comfort, and stability in my life. And when I was talking to Dustin about it in the same conversation, I was just like, does that mean that I'm not following my dreams? He asked me like a really insightful question. He was just like, Sydney, when you were a kid, did you have any of those things in your life? And I was like, no, I never did. I never felt like I had security. I never felt like I fully had safety or the ability to just relax into my life. Because I was worried about other things as a kid. And he was just like, so then sounds like you're following your dreams. I've just been thinking about it a lot because I don't really know why. I guess because I feel like we all end up being faced with a time in our life where we ask ourselves, do we feel happy? And do we feel like we're in the right place and on the right path? And when I ask myself that question, I feel like my answer is yes. Overall, I guess what I'm trying to say is that life has been interesting. It's been, come here, Bruce. Come here. It's been joyful and stressful and exhausting and happy and hard, and it's just been everything. And I'm just learning from all of it. These are done. They look pretty. My dogs are being annoying.